Next, I would like to bring up Ann Phelan, who is the CEO of the Plymouth Public Library Foundation. She and I go back many years, and we had a lot of fun putting on wonderful programs just like this. So welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. And I want to echo what Jennifer just said. I think this is truly magical at this combination of Anya and the harp and the poetry. It's like something I've never experienced. So I'm delighted to be here doing this. I have the pleasure of reading Song of the Wandering Aengus by Yeats. And this was first published in 1899, and the poem tells the story of Aengus, the Irish god of love, who falls in love with a banshee in a dream. He then spends his life searching for her. And I'm going to turn it over to Anya now.
So what makes Yeats's poetry so rich in many ways is the way he alludes to so many aspects of Irish mythology and folklore. So he talks about going out in the, he talks about the hazelwood. I went out in the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, which I love. But the hazel was, you know, when people would go out divining for water, they'd use a hazel wand, and hazel is sort of the wood of divination. And then he mentions the apples, the silver apples, and the apples in mythology. The apple was always, and the apple tree was always the gateway to divination and to the other world. And O'Carolan, who's a composer I'll follow up with, one of his first songs, he falls asleep under an apple tree and finds himself in the other world. And you'll notice that a lot of these stories of mythology, the gateway to the other world is always the apple tree. And you'll hear him mention the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. And the moon always refers to the feminine, you know, the feminine aspect. The sun is always the linear male. So all of Yeats's poetry is just layered up with layers and layers of Celtic mythology. So if you really want to understand his poetry, you have to read some of the mythology and the folklore. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Song of the Wandering Aengus. I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair who called me by my name and ran, faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hands and walk among long dappled grass and pluck till time and times are done the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun.
So one of the other things about that poem is it sort of follows in what we call the Aisling tradition. So remember I mentioned the bards to you, and some of these bards used to really write in very strict meter and times, and because they were poets, and it was often said that over the centuries the bards got too concerned with form and less concerned with creativity. But one of the types of poems they did was the Aisling, which means dream. And what would happen is they would fall asleep, and in their dream they would meet this beautiful woman. And so in the poem they would describe in great depth and detail the beauty of this woman, you know, her hair and her skin and whatever. And so to a degree in that poem, Yeats is continuing on the Aisling tradition. And this little tune of mine is called Aisling, and it's my own sort of tone poem to the Aisling tradition. And I never usually tell people that, but now ye know. you.